Hello and welcome to the Blues Focus podcast with me, your host, John Graham. Once again, many thanks for downloading the pod. Please remember, we've now got a sort of our own website, bluesfocuspod.co.uk, where you can find all the previous issues, all the previous pods, so you can go back and have a listen to those at your leisure. Please subscribe so you never miss one going forward, because we've got obviously lots and lots of content happening at the moment. And today is no exception to that. So as ever, Tom Oxland joins me. Hi, Tom.
Hiya.
And we've obviously got a very special guest. Obviously, probably doesn't need too many introductions. A player that played for 200 times for Birmingham City over the years, over 7 seasons indeed. And Darren Purse, thank you very much for joining us on this podcast.
How's it going, John? How's it going, Tom? You okay?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, very, very well. Right, Darren, what I'd like to do, we've done this on quite a few pods, is just, I think, really sort of start from the beginning with a lot of the players that we're sort of getting on the pod, just to really get an insight into, obviously we're all to understand and hear about your experiences at Blues, but maybe before that, it's sort of how did you get your break and how did you get into the game? So do you want to give us a bit of an insight into that?
Yeah, listen, as a kid, I was lucky enough to play for a really good Sunday League side called Simrab, who have brought. There's so many players that have come through from that sort of team, not just my age group, but age groups going forward and before me. People like John Terry, Ashley Cole, obviously myself, Lee Bowie was in my team, Jason Tyndall was in my team. So we had some real good players. We used to win sort of loads of trophies and that as a youngster, and sort of probably 13, 14, 15 years of age, I went around, did the sort of School of Excellencies, which they were. They weren't called academies back then, they were called School of Excellencies. So obviously did Arsenal, Tottenham, my own club, Millwall, went around the houses a little bit, never signed for anybody. My dad wouldn't let me do that. And then at 16 years of age, admittedly, you probably won't recognise it now, but I was quite a bright lad at school, walked away with all my GCSEs. And at 16, I was in a catch-22. I wanted to be a pilot, never I enjoyed my football, but never really wanted to go and play, sort of see it as a profession. And at 16 years of age, I had offers of sort of scholarships or apprenticeships at a couple of London clubs. And Orient came to my dad and said, look, don't let him stay on at school. We'll take him on. He can come and train with the first team, play for the reserves, play for the youth team. We won't sign him on a scholarship, but at 17 years of age, we'll give him a professional contract. So
Wow.
I was earning sort of 120 quid a week expenses with at Orient, which some of the pros weren't even earning. So I was so happy. And at 17, signed my professional contract 17th birthday, and made me league debut 3 days later against Brighton. So it was a bit of a strange choice, but sort of one that I've probably thanked my dad for, because he's sort of throughout my career, he's always been that person that I go to for any sort of where I want to go in different directions and that. And he's been superb, and he probably made the right decisions for me back in the day.
Yeah, and obviously with that first contract, obviously it sometimes for some players you either set in straight away or you go through lots and lots of clubs. I think obviously it seems like you served your apprenticeship really with Leyton Orient and then moved on to Oxford. So how did that come around? How did that move happen?
Well, obviously Orient, I knew they were a club that was struggling for money. They were struggling on the pitch as well. So I think we got relegated in my first full season, which weren't great. And I think they was trying to cash in on me a little bit. I was their sort of their little jewel in the crown, if you know what I mean. I think Blackburn won the league '94, and Kenny Dalglish was the manager. I think he put a couple of bids in for me. Glenn Hoddle was another one who put a bid in for me when he's Chelsea manager, and they just weren't quite enough. And then obviously Patsy Holland came in at Orient, new manager, and I never really got on with him. And there'll be a little trait there with a few managers throughout my career, but I never got on with him. He didn't rate me as a player, as a footballer, which is fine. And in the end, I got sold for 100 grand to Oxford, which was probably the best I could have done, because I was there for 18 months. I think I played about 70 games, playing alongside people like Matty Elliott and Phil Gilchrist, two really experienced centre-halves that sort of had real good careers in the game, and learned so much off some experienced footballers. People like Les Robinson, he's my right back. Just people that played sort of 500-600 games in the sort of professional games, never had had a career in sort of the lower leagues, but just it sort of just taught me how to be a professional footballer and what you needed to be a professional footballer. And then obviously the move to Birmingham came about on my 21st birthday, which was fantastic.
Well, and with that, obviously, you said you sort of went for 100 grand when they sort of sold you to Oxford. In those earlier bids, I mean, if the likes of sort of Blackburn are coming in for you, did you know did you ever get any sight of what that deal looked like, or was it very much they were interested and you didn't know anything else?
I think there were offers. I never really got told. I was at that stage where I was starting to get an agent. But throughout my career, whenever there was any interest, I just said to them, I don't want to know about it. All I want to do is concentrate on my football. Because at the end of the day, there's agents around, and agents can look after your business, but you've got to do it when you cross that white line. An agent can't get you somewhere if you can't head the ball, pass the ball, or anything like that, or defend or score goals. Is that agents are only as good as the player that they're marketing. So I never really wanted to know about anything that was going on. I just wanted to concentrate on my football. So I think there were bids, and probably a lot higher bids than what I got sold for. But I think at the moment in time when I was actually playing at Orient, I think they was looking for something like £500,000, and then obviously when the came in and I weren't playing, it was easy for him to get 100 grand for me, and he could spend it elsewhere. So from my point of view, I was just happy to get out of there and move on with my career.
Yeah, I suppose quickly on that kind of late and Orient early part of your career, I saw that you had a loan spell to Finland. What was that like?
Well, I've been out and played in Finland twice, to be fair. So it's obviously I made my debut at 17 in the February, and it got to April, May time, end of the season, and I think I'd played about 12 games, maybe 15 games, something like that. So obviously John Sitton and Chris Turner were the managers at the time, and they just said to me, look, you're going to be a bit part of our season next year. We don't think it's right for you at this moment in time just to have 6 weeks off and don't do anything. We're going to send you over to play some football over in Finland, and their season runs from sort of March to November. So I flew out to Finland and played out there for two months. I was out there for about 8 weeks, played probably 7-8 games. It was just nice for me to sort of grow up a little bit, spend a little bit of time away from home, and obviously play a few games of football at a different level. And it worked for me because obviously came back. I think the next season I went on and played sort of 40 games in the season, so it was good for a 17, 18-year-old.
Definitely.
Yeah, and obviously just going then, as you mentioned, you got the nod or the call from Birmingham when you were at Oxford. So, was that an easy decision? Again, were there other clubs in for you, or where was your head at then? Because obviously, as you said, still sort of 21 or just 21. So how did that play out?
It was an easy decision, really. Obviously, Oxford at the time were in the Championship, and to be fair, I think I came up. We played at St Andrews, and I played as a right wing back against Martin Granger when was in charge. So that was an experience playing against Granger. Obviously, we went on to be good friends and still are good friends. But so it was an easy decision. I love playing for Oxford, but you look at the size of Oxford and you look at the size, and obviously I work at Oxford at the minute, but you look at the size of Oxford and the size of Birmingham, and it was just, it was a no-brainer to do it. And obviously there was other interest. Dennis Smith was my manager at Oxford, and he'd just gone to West Brom. And Dennis Smith was the best manager I've played under by a million miles. And obviously I signed for West Brom in the February. I think in the March time he signed at West Brom. And I remember him ringing me saying, "You've moved a month too early. I'd have come and got you at West Brom." But to be fair, it was the right decision to go to Blues because, as you said, I had sort of 7-8 great seasons at the club, and it's just an amazing place to play football, and the fans are superb, and just loved every minute of my time there.
Just on that one with Dennis, you alluded earlier to you're not getting on with the manager, and maybe that was a trait at times going through your career. What made him different for you? Why was that sort of quite definite? He was the best. What made him different?
Listen, he was a manager. A lot of managers nowadays are coaches. They're always on the training field. He wasn't. He was just obviously as a man, he was sort of quiet, unassuming. But at times he could absolutely lose it in the dressing room, and you wouldn't want to mess with him. He had a nose like that, he had scars all over. He was a scar, wasn't he? But just such a nice bloke, and always had your best wishes or your career at heart. and just what he did with a group of players, as I said, that were just ultimate professionals, but were average footballers to get their championship sort of just outside the playoffs with the budget that he had about at Oxford, and what he did at the club was just brilliant, you know. And I just got a lot of time for him, and he was just fantastic what he did with that club at that time.
Brilliant. And when you came into Blues, Trevor Francis, manager. So what was your first impressions when you came into the club?
First impression, it was a strange one. I met Trevor. We met at a restaurant called Simpson's in Kenilworth at the time, and obviously sat down with him. Helen, obviously, God rest her, obviously passed away now, but she was a lovely lady, and I think she made Trevor Francis who he was, the persona that he was. She was brilliant, just sitting down, the dad, me, and obviously and them two just sitting down, just talking about what they wanted to do with the club, and he just had a real vision of and had the club at his heart. You know, he loved Blues, and so it was just, as I said, after speaking to him, it was easy just to make that decision to sign for Birmingham. And I remember the first going up to actually sign the contract up at the club. I remember going down the old main stand, and I met the kit man. Was the first man I met, and pulled up, young lad, 21 years of age, with my agent, knocking on the kit door. Looking for, obviously, Trevor Francis, trying to get in. He was like, "Who are you?" First signing for the club. He went, "No, I'm not letting you in here." He just shut the door on me and walked off. I've got to sign for this club. And in the end, obviously, the agent rung the club, got in, and signed the contract. It was strange. It could quite easily have not have happened with me first impressions of the kit man and that. But to be fair, he was good as gold once I was in. But yeah, it was strange. But yeah, great club.
Would you remember from the first? Because I mean, like you say, when Trev came in, I mean, just the icon of the club. And I wouldn't say on a hide into nothing, but given what had gone before him, it's probably fair to say that. But obviously, he definitely did, and he had a vision, and he was backed. So, what's your memories? Maybe the first couple of seasons in the Championship, any outstanding games, or how the club developed, or players?
I remember my first game was we played Bury at home on a Tuesday night, and I played it right back. And to be fair, how I ever played for Birmingham again, I will never know, because I was terrible. I mean, we ended up losing the game 3-1, and it was just it was a real baptism of fire. You know, little things. Just, I mean, when you go to clubs like you used to play in sort of front of 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, which I was at Oxford and Orient. And then you go to a club where there's 24,000, 25,000 on a Tuesday night, and there's that extra little bit of pressure on you. And I think as a 21-year-old, especially playing out of position as well, playing as a right back, I think the sort of the occasion and the night got to me a little bit. And as I said, we got beat 3-1, and then it took me probably 2-3 months and towards the end of that season to actually get back into the side again. So that was tough. And I think if anybody watched me on that first game, I think they'd have said, "How the hell was this bloke? Have we paid nearly £1 million for this young kid?" And I was lucky enough, obviously, to go and play sort of over 200 games, which was brilliant. But yeah, it was a real baptism of fire the first game. But going on to obviously the first couple of seasons, it was just like heartbreak a little bit, because every year we sort of got to the playoffs, missed out on the playoffs, whether or not sort of getting beat 4-0 at home by Barnsley. Obviously, the Preston debacle, when we obviously any other season would have been promoted because on away goals, and we end up losing on is. So obviously, sort of to miss out in the playoffs for 3 years on the spin was really tough. But obviously, I think it makes it all the sweeter when you do actually get promoted at the fourth time of asking.
Yeah. When you talk about that Preston game, and again, etched in my memory, that's for certain. I think on that penalty shootout, we were shooting towards their sort of fans, weren't we, if memory serves? And it was. That will lead me on to another question in a minute. Do you think that played a big part in, I guess, what we did, how we sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't say we bottled it, but, just that extra pressure. Do you think that was a sort of a key factor?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it didn't help, obviously, because at one stage we were all sitting in the dressing room at the end of the game. Trevor had actually brought us all off the pitch and into the dressing room, because I think there'd actually been an agreement before the game that the penalties would be, because I think at the time there was an open end. They were building the stand behind the goal, and I think that the agreement before the game was to go there. But I think the police then said, "Look, if we have it at that end, you'll end up with the fans behind that goal coming onto the pitch because they wanted a closer view. And I think it was actually the police that made the decision. And I think that's what Trevor Franco sort of peed off about a little bit. He sort of that did him. So I don't know. Penalties are always a lottery anyway. And I wouldn't say that the reason I missed the penalty was that the width of the goalpost. It wasn't the fact that I've been stood around for half an hour. So I would never blame us losing on whatever end you shoot at. I think that's it's a poor argument, but it wasn't to be. And as I said, it just sort of when you wait 4 years, it just makes the getting promoted that little bit sweeter.
Yeah, and as you said, we were knocking on the door every season. Had some, I just had I think, and again we'll move on to the side that we've got at the moment. That some bloody good footballers in those sort of teams, and I think probably were good enough to go up. It was just for whatever reason it didn't happen, and it ultimately meant that it wasn't to be under Trev. But obviously Trev did have, I guess, his sort of moment in the sun, I suppose, with Blues, albeit it didn't end the way we wanted to. What do you remember about the cup run? Well, obviously when we got to the final, what do you remember about those nights, St Andrews?
With regards to that side that we had, Trevor had done unbelievable, and that's what he was good at. I don't think he was a great man-to-man manager, but to pick a player and know a player, I think he was really good at it. And to put that squad of players together was excellent. And I think sometimes to get promoted, you just need that little bit of luck, And I think we used all of our luck probably a little bit, probably in the cup games, And you talk about the Worthington Cup final and getting there, but yesterday it popped up on my Twitter and it popped up on Facebook and that the semi-final against Ipswich. And today, that is the best game of football I've ever played in, barring sort of cup finals and that. The atmosphere that night was just phenomenal. You just could not sort of put that in a jar, pocket it, and bring it out. I know we're being harsh here. I don't think it'll happen at Blues for the foreseeable future, because I think it was just a collective of the fans and how good they were, the players that we had on the field. And I don't think nowadays players have a relationship with fans anymore. They might speak to them over Twitter or social media, but nowadays fans can't be at the ground before the game and meet up with the players and have a little chat with them. And I think years ago, and I think that's why the players back then were so that you could build relationships with them. I'd stand outside after a game and chat to people for half an hour. I'd get to the game clock, and it'd take me half an hour to get into the changing room because you chat there. You had friends like that were fans that you'd meet up with after a game and have a drink with, and I've still got friends of mine that are Blues fans that I play golf with from my time there. We keep in touch, send Christmas cards, and so it was just a real family atmosphere. And I don't think you can do that with the way the game is at this moment.
No, definitely. I mean, I managed to get a ticket in what was the railway, bottom right of the railway, which was like, the view was absolutely shocking. I could hardly see anything, but it was utter carnage. I mean, it was, I'm with you. Even some of the European games, the Blues that were amazing, but that is without doubt the best atmosphere that I've ever witnessed in that ground. It was. I was
going to say the celebrations of that Johnson goal, nuts. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. St Andrews ever.
The night, obviously going 2-0 up, and Hawks with his finishes was superb. But just like the pitch was, imagine playing that nowadays. It was just terrible. And it was just like, let's say, going 2-0 up, and then straight away they made it 2-1, and they were going through. It was just such a topsy-turvy night, and I think it just gave us as players the belief that we were good enough to mix it with Premier League teams, and I think it helped us obviously when we did play in the final. But it was that night was brilliant. But the final was just an unbelievable atmosphere. As I think I was 24 at the time. Obviously, just little things like that you remember from the days, walking out and Let Me Entertain You. Robbie Williams was blasting out and everything. Obviously Sven-Goran Eriksson was the guest of honour, and listening to Keep Right On from the 30-odd thousand Birmingham fans. It was just a great occasion, and just one that you'll never ever forget as a footballer.
And just on that game, I somehow managed to make it on time, because I think it was I think it was the first final in the Millennium.
Yeah,
because obviously Wembley was getting knocked down, and there was like thousands of Blues fans that just couldn't get in from the M4. It was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
And I just think that whole atmosphere again was phenomenal. What are your memories of the game itself? I know that. Sorry,
the game it was quite a good game, to be fair. And we easily held our own, you know, against the brilliant Liverpool side. You look at some of the names that were in that side. But yeah, just it's hard. Obviously, as a footballer, and I dropped down and played non-league football towards the end of my career for 5 years, and you hear more playing in front of 400 people than you do playing in front of 80,000.
Yeah.
You know, when you're playing that game, your sole purpose or all your thoughts are just concentrating on what's going on in the game. You don't worry about what the fans are like, what the crowd are like. As much as they do give you that extra incentive when they're singing and cheering you on, you are just totally focused on the game. So it's just enjoying a game of football, really, and it was a really good game, you know, and that's probably the biggest thing. And obviously, lucky enough to have probably my best moment in a football shirt at the end of it, really.
Yeah. So how come you're on pens? Because I know that from memory, I think you'd been sort of penalty taker, but just obviously in that game, you look at I think Andy Johnson was on the pitch, and you know, it's got a lot of what you'd probably class as, you know, the attacking players that would take pens, and obviously you got the nod. Was that something that you've been on them all season, or?
I'd always taken penalties from when I was a kid, and like when I was at Oxford and Orient, I'd scored a couple of penalties at Orient. When I was at Oxford, I scored a couple of penalty shootouts that we played in. So I've always taken penalties, and obviously I think Martin O'Connell was on them and Marcelo.
Yeah.
And actually, one game just beforehand, Marcelo was on a penalty. He missed it, and as he missed it, the referee said it's got to be taken again. I can't remember the game. It's got to be taken again. And I just walked over to him. I said, "I'm taking this," and I picked the ball, put it down, and scored. And I think from then I was on penalties. I think it was only a few weeks before the World Cup final. And obviously, I think if Martin O'Connor had been on the pitch, I don't know if he had, obviously, captain's prerogative. I don't know if he said, "Sod off, Percy, I'm taking this." But it just felt natural. I knew I was there. And the ball was there. I picked the ball up. And obviously, Martin O'Connor and Grange were both down. And it's surreal. Like, when I think back about it, it's surreal how, obviously, there's 80,000 fans, obviously 22 players and the dugout and the managers in the dugout. And I found like just a moment of like tranquility in the middle of the stadium with everything going on. I had the ball under my arm and I was stood like on the halfway line. Everybody was up there by the penalty box and making sure everyone was all right. And I just stood there on my own and just sort of looked around and thought, wow. And that was it. It was like surreal. And then obviously the couple of minutes passed, Martin went off. And I just knew I was going to score. For Saturday, I just knew I was going to score, and just lucky enough, it ended up in the back of the net, and it was it's a memory that I'll never ever forget.
Well, I mean, in the end, I think we were obviously massively biased, but robbed by the most blatant sort of hack down. I think Ellery was the ref, wasn't he? And
he on the grand scheme of the games, Martin O'Connor played the extra time, and he was on one leg, you know. So we played extra time, that's 10 men. And then we had the AJ opportunity. It should have been a penalty. But Brian Hughes had a brilliant effort that Vesterveld got back and tipped around the post.
Yeah.
We were like the only team in extra time that was going to go on and win it.
Yeah.
You know, and that showed you the belief and the sort of characters that we had in that dressing room at that moment in time. And it's just obviously I was disappointed to lose. It'd have been brilliant to win, but I think we just did ourselves proud, did everybody proud, and it was it was just unfortunate we couldn't walk away with a winner's medal rather than the runners-up one.
No, absolutely. And I suppose that sort of signalled really, I guess, the beginning of the end for Trev as gaffer. You know, it wasn't long after that he moved on. So obviously Brucey comes in. What were your first impressions? Was there a major sort of difference in strategy, in how we approached the game? What was the difference for you?
Not a lot, really. I don't know. Brucey sort of he made training really enjoyable. You know, Mark Bowen was his coach, and we'd do boxes every day. You know, 5-0s, like and we'd have like an English team and a foreign team on a Friday morning, and we'd have like it just made it enjoyable for some reason. And I don't think there was too much difference. I don't think there was that much difference in the personnel.
Yeah,
everyone very similar to under Trevor's era, but we just managed to get over the line. And I got on well with Brucey, but I was obviously brought in to replace him as a player.
Yeah,
I think I signed in February. Brucey left that summer, and obviously I don't know if in the back of his mind he had that. I don't know, but we did get on. But I ever thought I was going to be his main centre half, and I think sort of after, not the next season, the season after, I got a little ankle injury. I was supposed to be out for a couple of weeks, and I was out for 3 months. And he went and bought obviously Kenny Cunningham and Matty Upson, and I think that was sort of the beginning and the end for me at my time at Blues. So disappointing from that point of view, but obviously lucky enough to have the career that I had, or the played a number of games I did for the club.
Yeah, and what was I think from your point of view, obviously the transition from Championship, you'd spent obviously lion's share of your career at that level, and yeah, as you said, we massively held our own against Liverpool in a cup final. But that sort of week on week sort of, I guess, upgrade, was that an immediate thing for you? Did you notice the difference, or was it sort of you sort of stepped up?
People talk about the pace of the Premier League and the ball, the way they move the ball. Now it's all slow. It's a slow build-up, but the actual pace in the Premier League is like up a notch from the Championship. I was lucky. I played in the Championship sort of probably had 15 seasons in the Championship, and to be fair, that was probably my level. I could do that week in, week out. I could play 46 games a season, barring getting sent off or suspended, which I got quite a lot. And that was. But once you stepped up to the Premier League, it's a whole different level of professionalism, athleticism. The game is so much quicker. The players are so much quicker. And if you make a mistake in the Premier League, you get punished for it. If you make a mistake in the Championship, or you can make 2 or 3 and get away with it. And that was the biggest difference for me. Just like the concentration levels, you just had to be on it all the time. And as I obviously looking back, I was lucky enough to play in the Premier League. I don't know if I'd have been able to play in the Premier League nowadays, because I was professional. I looked after myself, but I was never the fittest person in the world. And nowadays, you have to be an athlete to play in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, watching some of the stuff that's been going on the last couple of days with certainly with Liverpool and centre halves, I personally think there's the art of like yourself, a proper no nonsense centre half. I still think there's a big part in the game for that. It does frustrate me massively where if the first sort of thing that managers are looking for from a centre half is can he do a Cruyff turn in his own area? It's I don't for me, but I'm an old bloke. It's probably my generation. But no, I think from my point of view, you're a fantastic player for Blues, so consistent. And in that first season in the Prem, we didn't struggle. We did not struggle. And so do you think
one man did that though?
Yeah, he was half decent. I was going to come on to that. So what was he like?
No, obviously Christophe de Gaulle, mate, was the best player a million miles I ever played with. He was an enigma, if you know what I mean. And obviously how Brucey got him in for when he did was brilliant. And he kept us up single-handedly. Obviously, we just became hard to beat, and we just get him the ball and he'd create something for you. And the players that he brought the best out of people like Jeff Horsfield, and people like that. And Horse was a bog standard, run-of-the-mill hod carrier of a centre forward, but he made Horse the player a brilliant player. And Horse, he'd openly admit that, and he just sort of upped the level for us as a team. And that 6 months, the first season we was in the Premier League, mate, he was phenomenal. I never really, I got on okay with him. I was always one of them. I was sort of very old school in the way. If you put a shift in for the team, I'll back you 100%. Once you stop doing that, then I'll have a word with you. And that's the first 6 months. He was brilliant, kept us up. Then he signed a 2-year deal on a 2-year contract on fortunes compared to what everybody else was on.
Yeah.
And I remember pre-season, he was coming back. He came back for a couple of days, did a couple of days of pre-season, and then he went back to France to play in a testimonial or something like that. And he didn't come back for 2 weeks. And that didn't sit right with me as a footballer. And we had a falling out at Everton at home. We beat them 3-1. It was a night game, and we were 3-1 up, couple of minutes to go, and he never tracked a runner, and that was it. I just lost it with him on the pitch, called him all the names under the sun, and he sort of came back at me and said, "I won the World Cup, man. I'll give fisticuffs." In the tunnel, it kicked off. I think I had Grange and that on my back, and he had people like Olivier Tebili and Alou Cisse backing him up, and it kicked off in the tunnel. And I think after that, his professionalism went after the first 6 months for me, but that doesn't take away from the respect I've got for him as a footballer and what he did for the team and the club over that 6 months, because he was phenomenal.
No, I mean, I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, haven't sort of seen many like that, Trev and maybe Frank Worthington, but those sort of just absolute geniuses. We were definitely blessed to have him for that time. So when you, I guess, the sort of the season after that, it was starting to come to the end of your career with Blues. So did you get I know you said Kenny Cunningham came in and Matty Upson. So was, I guess, the writing was on the wall, and were you looking sort of at that point?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I had a year left on my contract, and I think Bruce he had a quiet word with me and said, obviously, look, you're not getting enough game time. And West Brom were putting an offer for me, and I had a year left, and I was just debating what to do. And Gary Megson was the manager at the time, and I just felt like I needed a change. I said, I've been at the club. I'd love to have been there got a testimonial and been there for 10 years, but it just felt like for me in my career, I think I was 27, and I just needed a change. And West Brom had just got promoted to the Premier League again. It was just a good move for me at that moment in time to go and move. I didn't have to move the family or anything like that. I could just move over. And to be fair, Gary Megson was brilliant with me. He made me captain when I first went in there straight away. I say it worked out all right. But for 6 months, it was brilliant. And then Gary Megson got the sack, and then it all went a bit on. And obviously, they went falling out with managers and people that you don't really sort of never got on with. Brian Robson came in and was manager, and never see eye to eye with him at all. And he never rated me as a footballer, and that was it. It was time to move on from West Brom.
And then sort of, I guess, the move to Cardiff that sort of came thereafter. And again, did you just get a good vibe about the place?
Yeah, I was always. I never wanted to sit around and do nothing. I never wanted to sit around and play reserve team football. All I wanted to do was play as many football games, as many first team games, professional games as I could at the highest level that I could. And throughout my career, that's all I wanted to do. It was never about money or anything like. When I left West Brom, I had 2 years left on my contract. I could have sat there and picked up. I was on quite good dough, to be fair, at the time. But I ended up dropping I went down and met with Dave Jones at Cardiff. I ended up dropping, not to say half my money, but I was on sort of 60% of what I was on. And I could have sat and picked that up at West Brom. And I didn't. I moved. I took the decision to move to Cardiff. And as much as I loved my time at Blues was brilliant, and my time at Cardiff doesn't quite match up to it. But as a football club and as a place to live, as in Cardiff, it was brilliant. I spent 4 years there and loved every minute of it. So, and it's for the sake of money and all that, it was a brilliant move for me at the time. I was 28. I went in as captain. I was given that thing. We're going to move into a new stadium in a couple of years, take this club forward, and I think I'm hoping I played a massive part in taking that club from a sort of League One lower end Championship club into the Premier League club that it managed to become sort of within 6 years. So it was just a brilliant move for me from a personal point of view and as a professional point of view on the pitch.
So Darren, really interesting that point you made about obviously being on a decent lump at Albion and could have sort of, I guess, as you said, just wind your contract down. Do you ever get the opportunity to speak to players now, whether they're in that sort of quandary? Because again, what's happened over the last couple of days, I think is a really, you maybe look at Nesbitt up in Hibernian, that we obviously were very close to signing him. And do you manage to maybe give people that sort of advice? Because I think it's A, refreshing to hear, and B, I don't really see that happening these days.
Obviously, I work at Oxford. I work in the academy, so I try and give as much advice that I would do to the youngsters at the club there. The big thing that I would obviously say to lads in these professional sort of under 21s, under 23s is, rather than go and play 20 under 21 games in a season, go and spend a season on loan somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, there's lads on sort of thousands of pounds a week at Chelsea's under 21s, right, has got nowhere near the opportunity or nowhere near the chance of playing in Chelsea's first team. And it's not just Chelsea, there's other clubs, you know, but we'll just sit there, play on a Wednesday afternoon in the under 21s and just join in and just go and train, rather than going out, drop into League Two or League One or wherever your level is, drop into them leagues, go and play for 6 months. Because I don't think there's anything like playing for 3 points on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday night, and you're with a group of lads that are fighting for exactly the same thing. I think it gives you an extra incentive in how to win football matches and how to develop your game. And I don't think enough youngsters do that now. I think, and what happens, they get to 21, 22 years of age, they get released from these clubs. They've got big ideas that they're a championship or they're a Premier League footballer, and they drop down to League One, League Two, and they just can't handle what the football's like and the standard of football, the facilities. They just can't handle what it's like, and they're 22, 23 years of age and they're unemployed because they can't find a football club. You know, and that's the harsh realities of football. And I think a lot of these youngsters at these big Premier League academies have got to go and find their level when they're sort of 21 years of age, rather than still sitting there playing under 21s football.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think that's probably a decent segue into, I guess, what's happened over recent sort of weeks at Blues. So, I mean, there's one lad in particular that we've signed from Manchester City, and I think he's only 18 or 19. And I think he's been quite brave, to be honest. I think he probably could have done exactly what you've said. So what's your sort of I don't know whether you've kept relatively close tabs on it. What's your view about, I guess, the business that we've done in the transfer window?
I think it's okay. I don't think it's pulling up trees. I don't think they're going to go and change the season dramatically. Obviously, we've taken a couple of risks, as you said, with the lad from Man City. Raheem Harper's a risk, you know, coming from West Brom to Birmingham. He's a young lad. He's going to make mistakes, but hopefully, and I think it's one thing we have been missing, is that energy in midfield, you know, and in wide areas. And I think he might be that person that does that. Watching him for 20 minutes the other day, I don't know if he is or not. You know, he's going to have to give him a run in the side. But yeah, who knows? The signings we've made and the money we're paying, we're taking risks on players, and that's just the nature of where Blues are at this moment in time. And hopefully one of the risks pays off, and hopefully we'll be looking up for the rest of the season rather than looking over our shoulder.
What do you think of like the new signing? Because obviously we needed a striker desperately, and we brought in Sam Cosgrove as possibly that replacement. But from the outside looking in, it kind of looked like a replacement for Dukey, and we're still missing that kind of Adams replacement that kind of was going to be Nisbet if it came off, but it didn't in the end. So what's your thoughts on Cosgrove?
Dukey going off to Huddersfield, talk about him going to Middlesbrough, Cardiff. There's a few rumours about him going elsewhere as well. Listen, for me, if it was me, I'd have gone and bought Jordan. I'd have gone and got Jordan Rhodes from Sheffield Wednesday. You know, he's a proven scorer at the level. You know, and whenever I've watched him play, I think he's a great player. You know, I think he's a good championship striker, and I think that's what you need. Someone that's proven at the level, give him a fresh lease of life at the age that he is. I think he had maybe been the one that I'd have maybe gone for. But listen, as I said, bringing people down from Scotland is always a risk. You know, we had it at Cardiff. We brought. I'm trying to think who it was who we brought down, and he worked out really well. Scored some goals for us, and ended up getting a move to Villa and Fulham. I think he moved on to Ross McCormack.
Oh yeah.
You know, so obviously bringing a player down does work. You know, but obviously you are taking a little bit of a risk. And I hope that I would never speak ill of someone. I always take people on the way that they are when you see them. And I'm hoping Sam Cosgrove will be a player that goes and scores some goals for Blues.
I was going to say, I know you don't fancy him to score tonight, judging from your Blues picks selection.
I don't think he'll start. The reason I don't think he'll start tonight.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So that was my only thinking behind that. But as I said, I've never seen the lad play before, so I'd always hold judgment on a player until you've seen him, and then I'll give my honest opinion on what I think of him.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And what were your thoughts? I've been toys out the pram, to be honest. What was your thoughts on Kiftenberg going?
I think it's the right decision. He was out of contract in the summer. I think he frees wages to bring somebody else in. Sunjic does pretty much the same job. So I quite like the two of them playing together, to be fair. You'd have played the two of them together. I think you can give sort of a bit more free license to Bella and Sanchez and the players up there. I think if you played them two in there, you could play like a 4-4-2 and play with two centre forwards. So you could play with or Cosgrove and Hogan or whoever you wanted to do. But the big thing I'd like to see Bella and Sanchez change wings. Honestly, on the right hand side. Yeah. But listen, I think the reason they play where they are, I think Sanchez just likes to cut back on his left foot because he hasn't got the pace to beat someone down the outside. You know, but I look in my day, people like Stan Lazaridis, John McCarthy as wide players. You couldn't wish as a centre forward to have two better wingers. And I wouldn't want to put Bella and Sanchez in their league, but if you could get two players like that, and you've got Jukovic and Cosgrove, Jukovic and Hogan in the middle, gives you a great foundation to go and score some goals.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, as Tom said, I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand because St Andrews is narrow at the best of times. The pitch is it's not the biggest, and if you've then got your right winger that's on his left peg and he's only going to cut in, it's the knock-on effect of him coming in and then Colin having to overlap all the time, and then we're basically playing three at the back. I don't get it.
We haven't got. You look at Matt Colin and Pedersen, they're not overlapping fullbacks, are they?
No.
You know, they're sitting there fullbacks. They'll do their job for you. I know Maxime tries to get forward as much as he can. If you've got wingers that come inside and you're playing with two high fullbacks, then great, by all means do it. But I just don't think it suits the way that Blues play at this moment in time. You know, obviously the way things are going and the way. If it was me, I'd obviously sit with Sunjic in the middle. I'd give Gary Gardner a run.
Yeah.
I like him in the middle of the park. He breaks through lines. He runs with a ball. He's combative when he needs to be. You know, he's a threat in the opposition's box. I just don't think he's been given a chance recently.
No.
There's things that I would change as a looking at it from where I am, but you don't see what's going on every day. You don't see you don't know the players personally and how they are around the dressing room. But one good thing I think George Friend has been a brilliant signing.
Oh
yeah, absolutely.
I think he's been superb playing as a centre half or a left back. I think he's been probably one of the highlights of the season so far.
Definitely.
And I just think on that, what again, it's a bit of a head scratcher that they've had 10 days without playing. We played against Cov, and to your point, George Friend, for me, definitely the most consistent player of the season, and he's on the bench, and you're like, well, if he's not fit, don't put him in the squad, and if he is fit, for Christ's sake, put him on the pitch. You know what I mean?
I know he's like San Jose as well. San Jose's a centre half.
No.
Obviously, I'm lucky enough to play some. He gets sucked out of position too many times. He gets sucked out, and then the ball, there's always space in behind. And I think that in games gone by, I know Preston, the lad was offside a lot, but he was always playing on people's shoulders.
Yeah.
And if you've got like that, and I think tonight against Wickham, it might be a little bit different because you've got Bailak and Fenway up there, he's not gonna go in behind you. But
Run over you.
There's always that.
Yeah, and I think he was the same against Blackburn as well. And I think, with San Jose, maybe he could come into the middle of the park, and George could come over and play centre half with Harley Dean. I think Harley Dean would be better for having somebody like George Friend next to him. And Pedersen, like you said, he's a 7 out of 10. He's not gonna kill you going forward. He's not gonna kill the opposition going forward, but he's not really gonna cost you too much. And I just think that, as I said, when you do the commentary, obviously it's Blues TV, so it's massively biased anyway, but it's really good to hear what you say, because I think you do reflect what we're all like shaking the TV to say, for Christ's sake, just do it.
I guess I try and be as honest as I can. Obviously, I do BBC West Midlands as well, which is a little bit different for me, because I can actually say what I want to say as well. So, listen, I enjoy the commentary stuff. I'd love to take it a little bit further if I could, if the opportunity arose. But it is good. You have to be a little bit biased, because obviously the people that your audience is more often than not Blues fans, and they want to see what your opinion is, and what I would do as a like if I was in charge, if I was doing that. And but it's just trying to be as honest as you can. Try not to fluff it up. So I don't understand when people say things for the sake of saying it. I think the Blues fans that are listening want to listen to what your opinion is and be honest with it. If somebody don't like it, then deal with it. It's football, and you have your opinion. And
sort of, obviously, you're back at Oxford now, sort of these things involved with the youth team, as you said earlier. So is it, so you said, sort of alluded to maybe media work, or now you're back to, doing coaching. What in an ideal world, what does the future look like for you?
I'm going to manage England by the time I'm 60. There you go.
Why not? Why not?
My dream as a player was always to play for England. I got to a couple of provisional squads when I was at Blues, but never sort of actually made that. Play for the under-21s. Listen, you set your dreams, you set your bars high, and that's what I'd love to manage England at some stage. I want to be a manager, but for young men, sort of just finished. Just don't get the opportunity. I know that I'm going to be good at it. I know I enjoy my coaching, but I'm not a coach. I'm a manager. I want to go and manage teams. I want to manage budgets. I want to go and manage the players you're bringing in. I'll let somebody else do the coaching on the pitch for me. I'll step out and do it. But I will be a manager. I will be a success. But at this moment in time, it's just getting that opportunity and the right club to do that. And we'll see where we go. Like the little things. Like, obviously, I applied for the job at Birmingham about 3 months ago for the under-18s when Robbo left.
Okay.
And got a first interview, but never got an interview after that. So obviously, just like stepping stones to try and get in the game as much as you can. And but the target is to be a manager. I'd love to manage Birmingham at some stage, but it's about getting the opportunity, getting the experience under your belt to do that, so that when you do get the chance, you can give it the best run at it that you can.
I know, towards the end of your career, you obviously played for quite a few lower league teams. Obviously, you probably have links there. Do you reckon you'd maybe be able to start from scratch, I suppose?
Obviously, when I finished playing at Enfield, I took the opportunity to go and coach at Oxford in the academy, and I think that's the way forward for me. Yeah. I don't see myself managing sort of Conference South or sort of lower than that, Ryman Prem, Midlands. But it's not a level that I know. Obviously, I played in it for 4 years. I don't understand that the players are hard from a professional point of view. So I'd like to get the opportunity in sort of the National League somewhere if I could. Or a good League South that train most days and sort of build your experience up from there. But it's just obviously you apply for jobs and you get the odd interview here and there, but obviously your face don't fit, which is disappointing. But you have to keep plugging away, because you know where you want to be, but it's going to be hard work to get there.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, just sort of getting back to, I suppose, getting close to wrapping it up. We got obviously a big game tonight. How do you see it playing out? I mean, I know we've had some, again, stop-start, put some really good performances. Then sort of not up for me. Cov was shocking. I thought it was poor. Where do you think?
I didn't think Cov was that bad, to be fair. I thought second half we played a little bit more, and the Blues fans we played a little bit more one-dimensional, went a bit longer, and we created things from doing it. Never looked like conceding second half. Don't get me wrong, Cov never came out to try. They was happy with their point, but I think we just got to play. We're not a side that are going to, and I like seeing it. I'm not saying get 50 passes in our own half and try and play, but get it out, play through the lines, keep the game simple. If you have to get it out your feet, you have to put it into a channel. Do that. Play the right ball, not the wrong one. And I think too many times when there's too much turnover with what we do, because we've got no real identity at the moment. You've either got to be one or the other, And I think Blues at this moment in time, I think he's struggling to get the way that he wants to play over to the players, because I don't think they're quite to the level what he expects. So what do? Do you give him that little bit more time to bring in the players that he wants? Or do you go and get a manager that wants to play the way that the players that we've got in are going to play? So it's listen. I think we'll stay up this year. I don't think we'll go and get relegated. I think there's 3 worse teams than Blues, but over the next couple of years, it's a real rebuilding project for someone. And if Karanka's the man, then we'll have to trust him to go and do what he's got to do. And he's done it at Hull, so I can't see why he can't do it at Blues.
Definitely. I think just quickly from me, quick fire question: who would you say has been your player of the season for Blues so far?
Probably Bella, maybe. He's probably the most creative person we've got. I'd say Bella going forward. Defensively, George Friend by a million miles. He's fielded in both positions as centre half and at full back, and I think he brings that sort of leadership qualities to the side as well. And I think that the lads trust him. So I'd probably say George Friend would be the player of the season so far, but Bella, from a creative point of view, he's the one that sort of looks to go down the side of people, bit of pace, bit of energy, and he's been creating most of our opportunities in recent weeks. Yeah.
And one last one from me, and you can't have Dugarry because I think it's unfair and it's cheating. If you could teleport one of the players from, I guess, those real halcyon days when you played for Blues, just one player that you could drop into that side that's going to be playing at Wickham, who would you chuck in there and why?
Yourself.
No, I think as a back four, I don't think we're that bad. I don't think you put Martin Granger in there, but George Friend, I'm not saying he's as good as what Granger is, because Granger's a ledge, but you put George Friend does a good job at left back. If you put me or maybe Michael Johnson at centre half, I think Harley Dean does just as good a job. So I think
I totally disagree. Mate, get your boots on to get down to Wickham.
I'm just, as the back four, I don't think you look at us at the start of the season, we wasn't conceding any goals. We were hard to beat. So it'd have to be forward areas, I think. And I'd say I'd probably Stan Lazaridis, I think.
Yeah.
I love play Stan, put Stan on the left-hand side, Bella on the right, stick Djukovic and Scotty Hogan in the middle up there, and I think we'd be all right.
That sounds brilliant to me. Darren, thank you so much. That's been really, really good, and I'm sure that all the Blues fans that are listening to that will sort of love that sort of hour of reminiscing when we were, really going places, and you were absolutely, front and centre of that. So from all the fans, thank you for your service over 200 games, and you never know. There's lots of managerial changes at Blues, so if there's one club you want to manage, I think there'll be plenty of opportunities. So who knows? But thank you for your time.
From my point of view, thanks for your time as well. Thanks for letting me have a platform to speak to everybody. But yeah, thanks to all the Blues fans for all their support over the years. They've been superb and a massive part of my career. So thanks for everything.